everybody. Welcome to the Standing Committee of Public Accounts. My name is Fulton Christians. Next to me is Mr. Dustin Davids. I'm just going to give the members opportunity to introduce themselves, and then the AG and the Audit Committee, and then we'll commence with today's session. Over to you, members.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Auditors General. My name is Noko Masipa. I'm an alternate member on this portfolio. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Where I'm sitting, it's now in the afternoon. So good afternoon to Chair and honourable members, as well as members from the AG and Audit Committee. I'm Leon van Wyk, a member of this committee.
Meeting again. Good afternoon, Nama French and Mbombo. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Peter Johnson, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Good afternoon, my name is Nomin Kondlo, alternate to Scopa.
Good afternoon, my name is Pat Lecker.
Chair, let me correct my greeting. Good afternoon.
Is there members online? Any members online? No, nobody. Okay, thank you. Over to the AG and the Audit Committee.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and honourable members. My name is Ashley Olkers. I'm a Deputy Business Unit Leader for the Auditor General of South Africa, representing the Senior Manager, for which I will have to apologise, the Engagement Manager, Melanie Joffe. Thank you, Chairperson.
Good afternoon. I'm Mariki Kotse, the Manager at Agriculture and Casidra from the Auditor General.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair and members. My name is Comfort Bunting from the Audit Committee.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. I'm Crystal Abdal and I'm the Chair of the Audit Committee at Casidra.
Good afternoon, members and Chairperson. My name is Tsepo Mohlomi, Auditor General Office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Online.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair and members. My name is Andrew Davids, and I'm an Audit Committee member for the Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you very much for introductions. I'm going to do the department first, and let's start with the department. AG, over to you, and then we Everybody, and welcome to the Standing Committee of Public Accounts. My name is Ferlin Christians. I'm chairperson of this committee. Next to me, standing there is Mr. Dustin Davids. I'm going to give the members opportunity to just introduce themselves and then the department. The minister is on his way, so we're going to do Casidra first. I would like to give the minister opportunity with opening remarks when he comes, but we'll proceed with Casidra first, hoping that the minister's here when we start with the department. Over to you, members.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues from the department and Casidra. My name is Noko Masipa.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Leon van Wyk, member of the Public Accounts Committee. Good afternoon to department officials from Department of Agriculture and Casidra, and to fellow honourable members.
Afternoon, Chair. Afternoon again, Nama French and Bombo.
Good afternoon, Peter Johnson, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Afternoon, my name is Nomin Kondlo, an alternate to Scopa.
Is there any members online? I don't think so. Can I go over to the HOD department, the Casidra, for introductions? Thank you.
Mohale Sebopetsa, head of department.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Lindy Govender, CFO Agriculture.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Daryl Jacobs, Deputy Director General.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Dr. Elsa Troutman. I'm the DDG for Agricultural Research and Regulatory Services. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. Keith Du Plessis as Chief Executive Officer, Casidra.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christo van der Rede, Chairperson of the Board of Casidra.
Chairperson, good afternoon. Freek van Zyl, CFO Casidra.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. David Neff, Chief Program Officer, Casidra.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Bunguso Madoti. I'm responsible for Agricultural Economic Services. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Lenise Seconds, Human Capital Manager, Casidra.
Good afternoon, Chair and the members. My name is Vusumzi Zwelendaba, responsible for food security. Thank you.
Chairperson, members, good afternoon. Paul Rockman, Chief Director, Operational Support Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Dirk Troski, I'm responsible for business planning and strategy in the department.
Afternoon, Chair and members. Annelien Swanepoel, Research and Technology Development Services with the department.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Nolu Vuyo Magadla. I'm responsible for animal health in the department.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Gertrude Jacobs. I'm responsible for agricultural education and training.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Michael McKenzie, Program Manager Food Security, Casidra.
Asia Peterson, responsible for sustainable resource use and management.
Good morning, Chair. Ginindam Caesar, PVO Veterinary Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Jerry Aris, Agricultural Producer Support and Development.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Jackie Pandaram, Rural Development.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Debbie Zana, Financial Management, responsible for budgets.
Good day, Chair. Maurice Nasligan, Department of Agriculture, Manager Financial Accounting.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Clint Starling, Agriculture, Supply Chain and Assets.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Daniel Johnson, the Media Liaison Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture.
Ricky van Jaarsveld, Head of Ministry.
Thank you very much at the back there.
Good afternoon, Crystal Abdal, Audit and Risk Committee Chairperson, Casidra.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Comfort Bunting, Audit Committee Chair, Department.
Good afternoon, members. Mariki Kotse from the Auditor General.
Good afternoon, Chair. Ashley Alkes, Deputy Business Unit Leader, Western Cape Auditor General. Thanks.
Thank you. Online.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Andrew Davids, Audit Committee member for the department. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Blanche Cancross, Internal Audit for Department of Agriculture, Western Cape.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Harrison van Rensburg, Provincial Forensic Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Pedro Swartboy, Internal Audit.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Suzanne Cardelsa, Internal Audit.
Is that everybody now? Thank you very much. Members, as I said, we're going to do Casidra first. So I don't know, Isudi, if you want to do opening remarks as well for Casidra, but I'll give the chairperson and the CEO opportunity. We'll skip we'll do the chairperson and CEO of Casidra. Just a note that the minister had a doctor's appointment, so that he's not late on purpose. He's not here because he had a doctor's appointment. So I just wanted to place that on record. Thank you, Chairperson and CEO of Casidra. Open remarks, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's indeed a privilege to present our audited financial statement to you and SCOPA. I am indeed very proud in terms of the fact that we have a number of clean audits for the past, I think, 35 years. That is something that we really want to maintain going into the future. But the bigger question, obviously, for us as a board is to what extent do we make an impact? Because it's one thing to have a clean set of financials. The bigger question for us is, does it translate into meaningful improvement and betterment of people's lives out there? And obviously, I was recently appointed as the board chairperson. Going forward, this will be one of our key focus areas. But I really want to thank our chairperson of our own audit committee, Crystal Abdul, as well as our CEO, Mr. Dr. Keith Duplessis, and management. I really want to thank them and the CFO for all the hard work that they've put into this to ensure that we have a financial statement that is not only compliant, but is also reflective of the work that we do as Casidra. So that would be my opening statement. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Chairperson. I think, I also just want to thank, first of all, the Chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, Ms. Crystal Abdul, for her sterling work that she's been doing in terms of helping us to ensure that we again provide good financials and that we maintain this record of clean governance. And then obviously we want to make sure that that translates into actually the improvement of the lives of the people of the Western Cape. This year we've implemented a number of food security and comprehensive agricultural support program projects, and also we ended the year off with a profit of approximately 1.8 million rand. So we are quite happy about how things are currently standing, and also with the assistance of the board, we are sure that this coming year we will also show some good clean governance and good results in terms of what we want to achieve in the communities that we serve. So with that, Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that the minister's here. So I heard the minister this morning very proud about Casidra and say it's the best state-owned entity. So I watched all of that. So I'm going to give you, Minister, opportunity to do your opening remarks. We're doing Casidra first, and I did make an apology that you had a doctor's appointment. So we've got that on the record, but you are here. Thank you very much, Minister. Over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Chair. And I just came from a doctor, good health, but not wealth. That is for the pension fund to determine my wealth. As I discussed with Honourable Member Mkontla, it is looking good at the pension fund. But thank you for this opportunity. And as I indicated, I'm very proud of Casidra. Casidra did go through a dip with the previous Chief Executive Officer. I'm very proud that since he took over, we have seen significant changes in the project delivery and in the financial performance, as well as, and I'm very proud that previous term when you met us, you have seen Professor Johan Kirsten. He has now been succeeded. I appointed Christo van der Rede as the new chairperson of the board, and I'm particularly happy for the work that he's been doing in the current financial year, not the one that is under review, but there was a successful handover and a meeting between the outgoing chairperson, myself, and Mr. van der Rede, as well as the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, Ms. Abdul, and I did have a meeting with our colleagues from the Auditor General and one of our able and capable members of the Audit Committee, and I'm particularly proud to present also the financials before SCOPA of Casidra, as you rightly pointed out, a benchmark for the rest of South Africa, more than 3 decades of excellent financial performance, and I'm very proud of this institution.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those, and thank you, CEO and Chairperson, for the opening remarks. Members, as we do it part by part. Part C, we're going to do, and then we're going to allow for questions. Part E, allow for questions, and part F, then we're going to allow for questions. As the norm, 2 questions per member, and if there's a follow-up, we'll go back to the follow-up members. And please be reminded, speak through the chair, don't dialogue, speak through the chair so that they can control the meeting. Thank you very much. Members, page 31 to 39, Part C, Governance of Casidra. I'm now allowing for questions, 2 per member. Thank you. I see. Say again. Yeah, yes, page 31 to 39. Right. Are we going to Member Kotler? I'm giving a lot of latitude here. Member Kotler?
Thank you for the latitude, Chair. Chair, I'm struggling with this Part C. I see on risk management, it speaks about the framework and so that's why it was a bit difficult for me because I would have been interested on what are the risk issues of Casidra. Actually, one of them, I think, is one we're discussing recently. Perhaps we'll talk about it when we go to financials. But I think at this point, I think how it's put together is different to others. It's difficult for me to, I don't know whether they say there, if I read, the combined assurance framework has not yet been implemented at the company, largely due to its size. I'm not sure whether it's their entire risk strategy that is not yet developed. Is that what they mean there, Chair? So maybe they can explain, because I would have been interested in that in particular, what some of the risks that Casidra is facing.
Thank you, Member Lecker. Just give the page number because I struggle to get the page now. Give the page number so that we're all on the same page. Thank you. 638. Yeah.
Mine, Chair, is on page 32. Under the board performance assessment, I want to check in relation to the attendance of meetings. Are these meetings compulsory And if they are not, can we get reasons why they are not compulsory? Then to Chair, in relation to the external audit, it says here the audit and risk committee nominates the independent external auditor for Casidra project. And I want to ask, if this is the case, obviously this means that there would be extra monetary value that will then be dispersed to that external auditor. Is there no way that the internal audit team from the Department of Agriculture could be used for such? Thank you.
That's it, members. Over to Casidra. Minister, you can chip in whenever you want to.
Yes, I will chip in because we have in the room the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, Ms. Abdul, and she's quite capable of answering that specific question. But the CEO and the chairperson of the board can also respond to the other matters relating to page 38, as indicated by Honourable Member Nkontlo. But on another matter, general risks. In this period under review, we had 4 major floods in the Western Cape. So if you ask us specifically, I would regard climate change as a major risk, and this Casidra had to deal with many of these specific risks, and you would have seen in the report how they have dealt with that. The issue of the questions in terms of whether it's compulsory, the CEO and the chair of the board can respond to that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister. So when it comes to the question around the risk management and the combined risk assurance framework, I can state that we appointed an external service provider to assist us to develop the risk framework and policy that is currently up for approval in quarter 3. The quarter 3 Audit and Risk Committee meeting, and then obviously subsequent approval at the board in February. So a lot of work has gone into that. We have had a lot of issues in terms of how we identify risks and how we actually use risks and as opportunities, or see risks as opportunities. And so we received a lot of training around that. But this has been in development. We, in fact, over the past month, we had the internal audit team scrutinize the framework as well as a policy, and they provided some inputs. And that is now being incorporated into the document that will serve at the Audit and Risk Committee in I think February, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Then, so I didn't catch the question around the board, around the boards. If I may, Chairperson.
Member, like, just repeat that question.
Chair, I asked whether the board meetings are compulsory.
Got that, CEO?
I got that. So the CFO will respond to that, Chair.
Chairperson, thank you. Yes, the board and committee meetings are compulsory. To understand why they did not attend, have a look at the column. The majority of the board members had been appointed halfway through the year, or the others resigned before in the first half of the year. So that's why they didn't attend all the meetings. If I can then come to the question about the auditors. The Auditor General is responsible for Casidra. Now we've got Casidra and the projects. In Annexure A, you'll find a summary of the projects. In total, it is 30 sets of financial records. The Auditor General is responsible for the audit of the predetermined objectives of the IT system, of supply chain. The majority of the work are done. The other auditors are only responsible to do the year-end verification and of the financial statements, and it will not result in lower audit costs.
We covered. Thank you very much. Members, that is Member Lekker, you're still on part C.
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead.
Chair, I'm also interested in knowing, I see something that is disturbing. There's a lot of people that are resigning within the departments. And I want to ask, can this
We at Casidra department, you use the word department.
Casidra?
Casidra, yes.
There seems to be so much people that are resigning. And I'm interested in knowing whether an exit interview was conducted and what are the lessons that has been learned through those resignations, because there's just quite a lot of it.
CEO?
Chairperson, I just want to get clarity. Is that around board members resigning?
Member Lekker? You're talking about the board members resigning. You got that, CEO? Thank you. Got that?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think it was the end of a normal cycle, Chair. So there was a number of board members that actually came to the end of their term. So so there was a active nomination process and a process of actually recruiting new board members. So it was actually the end of a normal cycle, and yeah, there were some members that actually resigned earlier in the year, but bulk of the members that actually left was actually the end of term.
Thank you very much. That answers you. Can we move on to part E of Casidra? Thank you, members. Questions are on part E. I see Member van Wyk and Member Kontlo. Member van Wyk first, and then if you don't ask my questions, I'll throw mine in last. But Member van Wyk first, and then Member Kontlo.
Chair, I'll leave yours to yourself. On pages 50, 51, 52, we deal with supply chain management. There seem to be a fairly long list of limited bids, and knowing the difficulties or the hurdles that one has in supply chain, I'm just would like to get some possible explanation on the limited bids, and if that is relevant, it's because of the nature of the work that you are undertaking. If one could just get some form of understanding there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. If I can just throw my one in before Member Kontlo. Page 52, if you contract variations and expansions, if we look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the number 8, additional work after storm, that is a massive contract expansion. If you can just look at the initial contract and then the expansion, if you can just elaborate on that, why that massive contract expansion there at number 8, additional work after storm. Member Kontlo, the Member van Wyk, you don't know the limited bid is, the expert is Member Kontlo, but you've taken her one, so I wonder, did you now ask her a question? Member Kontlo, go.
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I think you've done the limited bid, so I'm not going to ask that question. Chair, I wanted to ask page, I think it starts on page 46, the irregular expenditure. Can we get more detail? I see it has been condoned, but why are we having irregular expenditure? What consequence management did take place, you know, of those that were involved, or what did the investigation found about it, or assessment? it's not raised here. And for me, it's actually also worrying when I look at the previous financial year and the current, that the value has exponentially increased. Also, in terms of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, if you look at the opening balance there, similar, and it's not explained. I'm not sure whether it's still under assessment. I see part thereof. It says it's under determination. One just needs more clarity, Chair, around the issue of irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And indeed, one is very concerned about the number of transactions that are under limited bidding. Because I think the first point of call, whilst we know it's allowed in PFMA, you can do limited bidding. But I think it's a concern for a small entity that is supposed to try and build its own capacity. Because I see here, it says expertise that you went out and looked for outside, whilst you supposedly to be wanting to provide a supply chain expertise to other entities and other departments. But even yourself, you are still gonna contract out the very service or capability. I'm not getting that one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just also mine is page 48. C, details on current, previous fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I know the cost has been recovered. My question is there controls put in place not to have a recurrence of the amount that was recovered? Thank you very much. CEO, over to you. And you can then delegate who must answer. And Minister, like I said, whenever you want to chip in, you can do that. CEO?
Thank you, Chairperson. I will hand over to the CFO to respond, Chairperson. The question around additional work for the storm, we will just have to, I'll just check whether my Chief Program Officer can get the detail on that one, Chairperson. And then, yeah, so the rest will be handled by the CFO. Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you. When it comes to fruitless and wasteful, I can tell you there's a thorough process that's been followed in terms of the guidelines and everything. It's been investigated, and where controls can be improved, it's definitely improved. And the matters are addressed with staff by means of either a disciplinary process and so forth. So to answer you, yes. First thing is we also try to recover the cost. In one instance, the amount was after several attempts and processes that was followed. We found it cannot be recovered, so it was written off. It was a 10,000. The amount was written off in the current financial year. The other amount that is in process of fully being recovered in a month or two's time. So that will then, it will never go away because it always stay on the register, but we will change the color to it was resolved. As far as the limited bids are concerned, in some instances it's a market access. It's something that happens in China, and there's only one supplier that we can use. And in a number of the cases, for instance, that's a limited bid process that's followed for those ones. I cannot recall now exactly what the tender amount was for that synergy houses, greenhouses. We'll have to come back and give you the full value or the value of the original contract. I'm not quite sure whether I've missed something.
You know, just to say that Synergy Greenhouses, it's 43,000 original contract value, and then almost 2.5 million is the extension. So that is what the expansion, that is what I was referring to.
I think that you're absolutely right. Additional work after the storm, Synergy Greenhouse, the original contract was 43 million. And now it is, 43,600. And it went up to, as you say, 2.5 million. I think that warrants an explanation before this committee.
I recommend we come back with the facts. I can't tell you right now.
Oh, thank you. No, that is all. I mean, we can do that. We'll do that in the resolutions. Member Nkontla?
Chair, can we then add in those resolutions that an explanation of the irregular expenditure? Because I don't think it is enough to give a general response that it will go through processes. I don't think we doubt at all because these are public monies. We're not doubting that the process will take place. We want to know what is the details, what was the irregular expenditure about, and then how has it been dealt with, the specific one that is reported in the book. And I'm raising this because I think in my other previous time, Casidra had to even, dismiss an official on supply chain irregularities. So I think it's important. So I think we must add it there so that the CFO can provide a proper response with detail, not general information.
Just remember, if you don't have the answers, it's just saying, listen, we'll put it in the resolutions, we'll ask you. But, if you don't have the answer, you don't have the answer. But the fact is, the questions are supposed to strengthen Casidra and to help and assist you what we are seeing. So, so if you say we'll come back, it's fine. We'll make resolutions afterwards. But that's the way we go. The audit committee, chairperson.
Thanks,
audit committee, yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
Go ahead.
Chairperson. I think management should be able to deal with the 4.7 million rand irregular expenditure. It was an expense incurred, I think, almost 2 or 3 years ago. National Treasury had conducted a review based on a number of queries and allegations made by a particular supplier who didn't win the tender. And based on the review conducted by National Treasury, we identified that there were some non-compliances to regulation. What we had done is, and what National Treasury had done as well, was to look at whether there was value for money. And there certainly was value for money. And on that basis, Provincial Treasury had also condoned the expense. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We'll take that up in committee. Thank you very much. Members, that is part E. Are you at part F? Member Lekker, part E. Where are you? Part E. Part E. Yes, we're still in part E, girl.
Thank you, Chair. On the column B, just below that, there's a note there. Page 46. There's a note there. Number 1 is non-disclosure of interest. And I'm interested in knowing, because it looks like there's a story there. What is that story and what has happened? Table B, just below table B there.
Just below table B, CFO.
Chairperson, yes. We've investigated the matter, and eventually the person was dismissed. In a few instances, what was ordered was not what was delivered. We've made a case with SAPS, and after year end, we receive a case number for that. Now, there's also a matter that was not disclosed. The company was registered on the CSD. And in the majority of the cases, the transactions was awarded to this company. Excuse me. At a very late stage, we could link a cell phone number to that company that we were not initially aware of. And by means of, I think it was a identity or caller identifying thing, that we've connected the number to our employee of Casidra. Now, in that case, the invoices was in the name of the company, but he did not disclose his interest in that company to Casidra. We were not aware of. Even if you go to what was on record, we could not see that he was, for instance, director of that company. So we found out that he did not disclose his interest in the company, and in the cases where we found that there was no value for money, we've registered that for SAPS to investigate, and they are currently busy. We've got a number, but they still have to come back with a meeting to discuss the matter further.
Thank you very much. Tell me quickly, did you just another page 49? Did you have no invoices received and no? We usually look at late payments and all of that, but did you receive no invoices? Yes, no record of invoices received and paid out. On page 49, the last section there. But the controller, let me
In terms of the non-compliance, we didn't have anything to report there.
Non-compliance, you had nothing to report there. Usually, what we have with the other departments is that you have 400, like agriculture is very good in that. They've put, this is the number that we have. We have no late payments, and they have naught. So many departments have 14, 15, 16 late payments. And then I said to them, then you must put a note at the bottom to say why late payments. So when you have 400 and you have invoice 400 for invoices, you paid 400, and then you have naught, like the Department of Agriculture has done. So you must reflect that. Okay, thank you.
Going forward, we will see, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Nkotla.
Chair, on the issue of non-disclosure, I just want to check in the reporting here. Firstly, how is disclosure attended to in Casidra, both of the board members and the senior managers, particularly those that are involved in supply chain? And how do you verify their disclosures of interest, if any? I'm just interested in that.
CEO, are you going to answer that? CEO?
Chairperson, yes. And my CFO can come in if I fall short in terms of my answer. But so what we do is we have we've got a process. Obviously, on when you are appointed, you are obviously asked to disclose all other businesses that you are doing or other work that you're doing as far as possible. We always say over report rather than under report. And what we've done, for example, in this week, we had internally we have a workshop, and it gets we present to all staff the importance of disclosing any businesses or other work that they might be doing. So there's an active process in terms of how we keep the staff informed. Similar goes on for the board members. If they come, then they have to fill out this non-disclosure form, or disclose of interest form, and that gets obviously they get in front ahead of every meeting. They have to report in whether they have any interest to declare. I don't know if there's any. Yeah.
Yes, if I may. Yes, we've got various awareness campaigns, and then it's a standard item on all the agendas of the meetings, management, board, and committee meetings, and it's minuted. And then also we allow an annual declaration in the beginning of the year where we send out forms and ask staff and directors to update the interests. If you forgot, or when we found out that there was a breach, then obviously we'll deal with that.
Thank you. Just to emphasize my point on page 49 with the 30-day invoices. If you read it here and you read valid invoices received, So it means you received no invoices, no valid invoices. Invoices paid within 30 days or agreed period, it means none, because there's so that cannot be correct. If I, as a layperson, read this, I said there was no transactions, there's no invoices. So this is not a true reflection. So we will ask Casidra to give us that information so that we are aware of that. So you understand, CEO, it's not funny. It's just, it says there was no invoices received, a valid invoices received. So I will do a resolution on that. Members, are we done with part E? Can we go to part F? Let's go to part F, members. I'm going to give Member Johnson first, and then Member Lecker, then Member Kontler. If you didn't ask my questions, I'll ask mine afterwards. Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I am on page 70 under the 25.1 prescribed officers. I'm just looking at the basic salaries of the CFO, the Chief Officer Projects, as well as the CEO. And if you look at the CFO and the COP, the Chief Officer Projects, we see sort of a 8 odd percentage increase in total cost to company for both of these positions. And then the CEO position we see from 2023 to 2024 is about a 35% increase of 400 odd thousand. I'm just trying to understand, is it sort of a re-look at the organogram, or does it have something to do with the appointment since 2022, but a 35% increase compared to the 8 odd other percentages? It's quite a jump. Yeah, it's just that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Member Pat Leck.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on page 58. On the nature of business. It says here, supplementary goals contained in the founding statements are poverty alleviation through broad-based economic growth and rural development. And my question then therefore would be, what tools of analysis are made to identify which of these communities needed to be assisted, and two, in light of the climate change, how is that impacting in terms of poverty alleviation? Thank you.
Member Kontler.
Thank you, Chair. My first one, I think I'll go back to the issue we discussed with the AG. The AG, I think, assessed Program 3 of Casidra, which has achieved 50% of its target. And reasons of underachievement is demand-driven targets. So my question, which is something that we're discussing with the AG, perhaps even the department can assist here, is actually the wisdom behind demand-driven targets, because by their very nature, they are dependent on external factors. So it is obvious, if you set a target that is depending on others or other things, chances are you are going to get to a situation where such a target, you may not achieve. And we're just saying, HOD, that perhaps this is an issue we would need to engage with yourselves. And I know even yourselves in the department, you do have such targets. Because if we follow the SMART principles, which also includes achievable, you always want to ensure that your targets that you are setting are within your own control, because you're spending your own resources that you must account for. So I think this is an issue that we're raising because you have, and we're discussing this, if you look at that particular target that is dependent, I think on that issue we're raising of CASP money, because some of it is the fact that the money may arrive late, others is demand driven because you are waiting on people to request the service and they do not. But you would have set a target, because when you set a target, obviously you are informed of your baseline or historic data. And I was just saying to colleagues also, when you look on those specific targets that were not achieved, even in the previous year, you had similar targets, that is CACIDRA, they had similar targets and they underachieved in those. So I think it's a conversation that I would like to think that it's a matter that we would like your views on, if we really cannot rethink those type of targets that are dependent on other externalities. The second question, Chair, is on page 73. On contingent liabilities. I see this is a matter that comes from since 2021, almost 3 years ago, and there's already a 6 million liability. So my interest is to understand, where is this matter now? What are the chances? I see CACIDRA is opposing the matter through their attorneys, but what is the current state of this particular situation? I think those are my 2 questions for now, Chair.
Thank you very much. I just want to put one in, page 65. You have number 8, cash and cash equivalents. You have cash in bank. The previous year it was 6.8 million, and now it's 1 million, and then cash investment. So it seems to me that looks like about 5.7 million was moved from cash in the bank to cash investments. Can you just give me the reason why that is how it looks, that transfer from one financial year to the other? Thank you, CEO. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the question, members. That final question I will leave to the CFO to answer. The question around the salary, I'll ask my HC manager to answer. But I just want to make a note there that maybe if you look at the salary, you'll realize that I was only appointed in June that year. So it's not a direct 35, because obviously 24 is a full year. And then there was a question around what tools do we use to select projects. When it comes to CASP and Elimelech SEMA projects, even disaster projects, there we are basically implementing projects as it comes from the department. So a beneficiary would apply through the CASP process, and that a CPAC or commodity producer adjudication committee would sit and adjudicate that project. And if that project is approved, wherever that project is approved, we will merely implement that project wherever it is situated or located within the province. I hope that addresses that particular question. Then the whole issue around demand-driven targets, that is something that we've seriously looked at this particular year, and it was, I think, especially the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee did raise that concern that our targets are not smart, and we have actually relooked our targets. And this coming year, we have reworked targets, and I think there is no targets that are left that are actually demand driven. So all our targets are reworked. We didn't want to change this on the last year of the 5-year cycle. I think that was also a decision that was made. So now going into the new 5-year cycle, we decided we will change the targets so that we have fresh targets for the new 5-year cycle. Freek will touch on the contingent liability. And I don't know, my HC manager can also touch on the salary issue.
Chair, if I can start on page 73, I'll try with what must the contingent liability. There were five. The case was against 5 or 7 instances. I think it was the Department of Agriculture. I'm not quite sure whether the Premier was also one of them. And then the fifth one is Casidra. It happened because a contractor sprayed herbicides and it reached the crops of a nearby farmer. So he now started to sue or open a case against 7 possible instances who can be at fault. We are aware, and obviously we work this, and it's coming for quite some time now. Every time we inquire through our attorneys to see was there any progress. And it's the latest that I received was let sleeping dogs lie, because the charges against some of the departments, I'm not quite sure whether it's all of them, had been dropped. So we are awaiting final confirmation to hear that as well. So as long as we inquire through the attorneys, because I'm not allowed to contact the client directly, we work through the attorneys and then every time wait for their feedback to see whether there was progress or whether the court made a decision on it, or whether there's even a court date to appear in court for the matter to be heard. But up and until now, we haven't heard anything in that regard. Then banks sometimes offer a better rate for short term. Casidra does not invest on a very long term. So the cash in bank is invested in either on a month-to-month basis, so as to foot the bills when they come in. So what we say, play short, so that we have enough cash to pay creditors and debt when it falls due. Now it can happen at that point in time the banks needed and offered a bit of a higher interest rate the previous year. So then we'll put more money on the shorter term and not invest it for a 3-month or so. And this year everyone was expecting or waiting for the rates to drop. So you don't want to sit. You can't make it long for a 6 months, for instance, long, because the longer term interest rates are lower. So you keep it on a 30-day call account. That's what we call, and that was the best interest that we've got, and the interest rates are recorded at the back in one of the notes. Then, the question about the increases, late last year, I think it was somewhere in December, staff at Casidra received an increase, and it was backdated to the 1st of April. Unfortunately, the amount that was earmarked or that normally would have gone to the pension fund could not be paid over because it was now in December. And to open for the pension fund to open the returns for April, May, up and until December was so that amount was allocated directly to basic pay, and it wasn't paid over as a company contribution. Only the December and January till March was corrected because at that point in time we knew exactly what the increases were, and we could make the normal payments in terms of the normal pay run. So now if you look at the basic pay comparison year on year, it looks skewed. It looks as if it's more than 7%, for instance. But the increases were based on the total cost of employment. So if you take that figure, you'll see that it balanced out.
Okay, any follow-ups on that? Member Nkondla?
Chair, can I just ask on page 69, I'm not sure whether it's what the CFO was referring to, the interest end. What are these external investments that Casidra would have received the interest on note 21 there?
Is there any other question? Any other questions? Member Sepa?
Thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up on the contingent, the
on contingent liability on note 34. The chief financial officer indicated that they're working through the lawyer. I'm just trying to determine, because this matter has been going on for too long, what are the fees of the lawyers to the CACIDRA as such? Because I don't see any disclosure of any fees to the lawyers that has been disclosed in the report. Thanks, Chair. Any other further questions on this section? Okay, over to you, CEO.
Chairperson, thank you for the question. I will hand over to CFO. Chair.
Chair, that is exactly so. We didn't incur any further cost in the matter because every time we inquired, the attorneys invited the other parties to a meeting and they didn't pitch up. So when I've inquired, there was no further cost incurred on the matter from the CACIDRA side as well. Back to the interest one, we only invest with banks, South African registered banks. So all that interest is then the interest earned on the bank and call accounts that we've for the year.
Thank you very much. Members, is that all the questions to CACIDRA? Thank you very much. That's the end of CACIDRA. Thank you very much, Chairperson, CEO, and CFO for answering those questions. We will, as a committee, send you some documentation with resolutions, but thank you very much. We're going over to the department. I'm going to give the Minister opportunity to do opening remarks and then also to the HOD. And then we will go ahead. Thank you very much, Minister. Over to you. Just one moment. I consider you're done, so you can leave. Minister, do you just want to give the opportunity to leave those who want to leave?
They can leave. They have earned their money.
If CEO, if you guys want to leave, you can leave.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Then we also want to just thank the committee and yourself, and also the department, HOD, and the senior management team for their support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Maybe the chairperson want to do concluding remarks there. Thank you.
Hello. We just want to wish the Minister everything of the best for his session.
Okay, I take note. But Chair, thank you. As they leave, I think what we've heard here during this session is the issue of the contingent liability. We note what the scoper has indicated. Our philosophy is a bit, let sleeping dogs sleep. Moenie slapende honde wakker maak, because suddenly, if you now call a farmer and say, how far are you with that claim? Then suddenly that claim will arrive on your desk tomorrow. So let sleeping dogs sleep. Then the PMFA compliance report, the late and non-payment of suppliers on page 49, the one that you raised. Thank you for that input. I agree with you, Chair. And I also agree something that raised your eyebrows is limited bids, but you have requested also some information which they will bring back. So thank you to CACIDRA for yet another clean audit, and thank you to the audit committee as well as the Auditor General, because in terms of the combined assurance model, that is why we have received the status, and all the people in the room is part of the combined assurance model, and we have recently a meeting with the Auditor General, which also extensively explained the combined assurance model which we are applying here, and we want to thank all of them.
Thank you. We'll give you a couple of minutes to excuse yourselves, and then the Minister will start with the opening remarks and the HOD. Thank you very much. Minister, over to you for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think my remark will be limited to three things. Number one, I think we value and appreciate the work of the both internal audit, the program managers, the external audit committee, and the Auditor General for the work and support in terms of the current status of our financials in this department. Secondly, this department had extreme difficulties last year, specifically as it relates to the whole issue of the major floods. And there are some major developments that's taking place afterwards in terms of this particular context. The issue that you raise now in terms of the later non-payment of suppliers, the point that you raise on page 49 of Casidera's report, you will not find that in this report, and it is reflected as you indicated on page 204. That is the correction which Casidera can learn from. Thanks.
Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much. Three things also for me. That agriculture is it's a biological system that very complex. It interfaces with other systems. Number two, we met about 95% of our targets for the year under review. And the third point is that agriculture is big business everywhere in the world, and it deserves the support of everybody because we all need agriculture so we can be sustained. We all need to eat. And that's why this sector continues to do what it does. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, members. We are going to do part C. That's 141 to 156, governance. I'm going to throw my one in first, and then I'll give you opportunity. Mine is on 145. It's the key emerging risk for the following financial year. And I've read it, and it says your external and internal environment. You cannot control the external, but you control the internal. And your staff turnover, you mentioned that as a challenge within the department. It includes matters relating to staff turnover. And of course, if you go to the human resource, 168 gives you the terminations, 39, and the transferred out of the department, 8. It gives you a tally of 47. So my question is, what are you doing with this risk that you have? How are you mitigating this risk? Members, over to you for questions. Member Van Wyk.
Thanks, Chair. On page 145, we talk about key risks. One of those that's included there is household food insecurity. Now, I think we all know that that is it's more than an emerging risk. It's a real risk that we have out there. And I think both yourself, your department, and Casidra is working within that area. Is there a way that one can look at more sustainable type of projects while one is looking at that risk? Just that being one question. The other that I noted also on page, I think it was 149, we spoke about health, safety, and environmental issues, and just this whole in a sense, the exposure that staff have to various health type of issues, because in Part D, and I know we're not dealing with Part D, but it's got some relevance there. In terms of sick leave, there seem to be a high percentage of the total staff number who are off on sick leave, and to what extent it seems to be something of a risk to me as well. Thanks, Chair.
Member Lecker, and then Member Kontla after that. Member Lecker.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on page 146 about a case that was opened on the 1st of April 2023. Can we have details about the incident that led to the investigation? And also, I would like to understand the process that was followed and the reasons behind that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kontla.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on page 145 on the key risks. I think on the issue of climate change, which I think is affecting us, I think in this province, Minister, just want to check with you. I understand, I think recently you even mentioned that now you managed to get the climate change issue as a strategic priority of cabinet. You may not have acceded to the call for a environmental commissioner, but I think for me, I'm interested to understand whether at this point as the province, how are we dealing with the resilience capacity of the province in as far as climate change is concerned? Because I think if we consider, and it's a government-wide type of a problem, because when we look at heavy rains, the flooding that impacts roads, that impacts human settlements, a lot of things, our infrastructure. So for me, I'm interested, what is a climate change resilience sort of program or strategy that as a province we are sort of looking at, because the issue of climate change, in the country, but also in our province is real. We know from this, we're going to be looking at, the fires, because we're thinking it's almost December, it's going to be sunny, and these things are repeating every time. You get to fire disasters, you must be running after, people complaining about government disaster funding, where they were able to give people, some materials and all of that. But at some point, I think as a country, and as a province, we really need to get to a point where we've got a climate change resilience plan. So I just wanted to pick your brain around specifically the issue of climate change, and the fact that at least now it is actually part of a key risk that as the department you've elevated. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you very much, members. Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, to the honourable members. Yes, in terms of those key risks, I think Honourable Member Van Wyk is also correct. It's not only emerging risk, it is a real risk in terms of household food insecurity. In the report before us earlier today, we also reflected on the percentage of people that are suffering from food insecurity in South Africa, roughly about 11%, and that is very substantive. So the issue of more sustainable projects, the colleagues can speak to that. Then the Chair, you asked about the turnovers and the issues of sick leave. The HR people can respond to that. Honourable Lekker mentioned on page 146 the issue of the investigation and the case that we can respond to. But I would like to respond to Honourable Member Nkontla in terms of climate change. This is really a big issue that we are seeing now globally happening, and it's no more flooding. It is now the death of people in a whole town. It is flooding of a whole building. It's now cars and trucks and the station gone. So this is really matters that we globally see. And I hear Honourable Member Nkontla making the point, which I think is the right point. She said that climate change is a government-wide approach, not a singular department approach. And she asked about the approach of this government. There are three things. Number one, I'm so happy that we have an interministerial committee on climate change, both Minister Bradell and myself. That committee looks into our response in terms of climate change. Honourable Member Nkontla will be very happy. Only remark is that this is a government-wide, need a government-wide approach. Last week we came out of an MTech, and in the MTech there were 4 themes across all departments. Ministers had to respond to those 4 themes in terms of that. One of the themes was the youth, other themes were infrastructure, and climate change and disaster risk management was also a theme. As you point out, it's a government-wide problem. So each department was asked, what are you doing in your department in terms of risk mitigation, in terms of climate change? But Dr. Ilse Trautmann can respond more specifically in terms of the climate change resilience strategy that you spoke about. I'm also very concerned about the fires and because we look normally what happened in the Northern Hemisphere, specifically, Chair, in terms of Mediterranean regions, and the fires is a major risk. And Minister Bradell will soon again make an announcement about fire season readiness from the Western Cape. And during the MTEC, there was a call by the Department of Local Government for further investment into the disaster and risk management, and I supported it in that meeting that we need to make further massive investments. Honourable Chair, the members of this committee will know that the President has signed into law the Climate Change Bill. It is now an act, and in terms of that Climate Change Act, there are certain obligations for various different spheres of government, and Minister Bradell and I have unpacked that, and we have developed a climate change governance framework for this government in terms of how we're going to deal with some of that provisions in the climate change bill. So this is really something that we look into. But climate change, we have adopted the approach that we cannot look at climate change in a generic context. Western Cape is a Mediterranean region. Mediterranean regions have the same climatic conditions, and so we have looked at what best can we learn from Mediterranean climate regions, and we, through Dr. Trautmann and Karen Chippy and others, we have now become part of the global network of Mediterranean Climate Action Plan, and there's some great work that is currently being happening in that particular space, and I'm particularly happy that this matter will receive major significant attention as we are going forward. I've recently met the Minister of Fisheries and Environmental Affairs, and he specifically has also made this climate change a specific ministerial responsibility. We are meeting with the GNU Minister soon, and we will also discuss this matter with them in terms of closer cooperation. We have also seen that this is a very important matter, and I'm very happy that previous terms, there was a provision made for earmarked allocations, specifically dealing with sustainable resource use management, because our colleagues have testified that where they have put in sustainable in the river protection work, where they did that work, there were no floods. So we are of the opinion that we need to strengthen sustainable resource use management and river protections and gabions and other infrastructure, because everywhere where we've had that investment, we save millions in damages downstream in the economy. So, Chair, that's from me, but I hand over to the HOD. But these key risks is real, and we mustn't underestimate the. If you have high unemployment, you have high levels of food insecurity, and this government is committed to look after those people through sustainable projects, and the colleagues will respond to that in terms of food security. In this new term of office, specifically in relation to food insecurity, I have made one of my priorities for this term, food security and nutrition.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm going to ask Ilse Trautmann to respond to the climate change, and the CFO to respond to page 146 with respect to that case from 1 April 2023, and Paul Rockman to respond to the issue around sick leave. And I think that's it from our side.
Thank you, HOD. Chairperson and members, shortly on climate change. I think Minister has explained the governance structure that we have in place. I think it's very important in the climate change space that we build partnerships also with our commodity organizations, because they're doing sterling work in their particular commodities. For example, Hortgrow is doing sterling work in the climate change space, and we're linking up with them to extend the efforts by our commodity organizations. Two significant agreements we signed last year was the Stellenbosch University School for Climate Studies. That agreement was signed between the Department of Agriculture and Environmental Affairs and Development Planning in November, and that would give us the ability to grow postgraduate students and capacity in climate change. And then during December 2023, we also signed the Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership. We have been seen as one of the pioneers in this partnership, and 15 regions with Mediterranean climates are working together in 3 focus areas: extreme heat, which is very important for South Africa, and particularly the Western Cape, fires and droughts. And we were very honored to also have Karen Shippey from our Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning elected as the chairperson of this drought committee. I think the challenge now is to balance between proactive and reactive. We know the disasters are coming our way, and we get relief quite often from national department and also provincial treasury for reactive disaster funding and correcting what has happened during disasters. But we're looking at, as you said, a government-wide approach to also look at the proactive part. And that is very, very important. I think we're building on good work we've done in the past. In 27, the Western Cape Climate Change Response Strategy was developed, and it's been updated through a number of iterations. The latest was, I think, 2023, and then the Smart Agri Plan that we developed from 2014 to 2016. And we're also working on strengthening that plan. So 2 key plans leading us, and also then Premier was elected as the Africa co-chair for the Under 2 coalition, which is giving us extra muscle in terms of the climate change space. And just then hot off the press, the Western Cape has won the bid to host the MCAP, the Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership, in May 2025 in Cape Town, bringing all the experts of the 15 regions to the Western Cape, and we hope that that would also advance our learning and our capacity in that respect. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you, Chairperson, through you. So this specific case was a case of the previous financial year that related to allegations of nepotism. So as part of the recruitment and selection process, so there were allegations that the questions might have been shared before the actual interviews. So that was so the process would be that it was reported to internal control. They did a preliminary investigation, and it was then referred to the Provincial Forensic Services, who did a thorough investigation in terms of their processes, and they reported back that the matter was unsubstantiated and therefore closed in the financial year.
Listen, you referred to the turnover rate and the number of 47 exits out of the department on page 168. Let me maybe just explain the following. So you notice at 5.5% turnover rate, 47 out of a staff complement of 858 there. Just for interest, Chairperson, that is the lowest in the Western Cape government, amongst the Western Cape government departments, at 5.5%. So I thought I'll just cite that there. I've also checked South African industry standards for turnover rate, and that is at about 16%. So we'd almost want to, as it were, appropriate for ourselves that the department is managing to retain staff for as long as possible, and and keeping staff. Now, if you turn the page, for instance, to 170, it talks about resignations there, and again, that number is 16, very low. But I want to draw your attention to the age profile, and you can see it's 49 and below, 20 to 20, 25 to 29. Now, the story that's being told there is that once you yeah, see if I can continue. The story being told there that once you reach a particular time at the department, you just don't leave. You're so happy. You retire there, Chairperson. And I think this draws our attention to the point that you make in part C, because it's about that retirement complement, that complement of staff that's going to retire. And yes, we are arrested with this reality because, in fact, 24% of our staff is in that age category 55 and above. In fact, between 64 and 64.999, 15 officials will retire as we speak. Between 60 and 63.999, 49 officials are in that category. So we've kind of drilled it down to tell ourselves, this is a risk. How will we get, this is the reality. So I just want to draw your attention. We've really got our eye on the ball on that one. Now, what are we doing about it? Yes, sure. We need to create that pipeline. We need to create opportunities for our younger staff. There's mentorship. There's HOD will talk to you about the next generation build program. We want to develop our own timber, as it were, and of course remain an attractive employer for young professionals joining the department now and in the future. So yeah, that's the story around turnover. If I go to sick leave, member, thank you very much for that question. And I would not perhaps be as concerned as what you've characterized about high number, because that's within the norm. So you'd see that norm says 8, on average 8 officials per year. If we remind ourselves, we're in the second year of a 36-day, 3-year cycle sick leave, and you divide that by 3, then it goes 12. Well, of course, we don't want anybody using their maximum 36 days, but so 8 is within the norm. But I want to draw your attention to the second column on that page, where it talks about percentage days with medical certification. And you can see it's particularly high, 85.8. So that speaks to the fact that people are sick, but most of the time there's some measure of validity. It's got a medical certificate. So, you know, what we win on the one side, perhaps lose on the other side. So I would suggest that's within the norm, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Chair, the minister also in need of sick leave. I'm going to apply to this committee.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think that's all the questions answered. No, I look, I take that 5.5 lowest turnover, but it's part of your risk. And if I've got an explanation here now, people, this is a public document. If somebody must read this, says there's a real problem. I don't know the information. I just heard the information, but members of the public don't have that where they can question you. So I'm a member of the public also, and I'm looking at what I see. So all those fancy 5.5, this is what I see. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, but Chair, you raise a very valid issue. The HOD and myself met with the Premier last week, and the Premier asked us, what are your risks in our performance assessment? The HOD said to the Premier, there's a real risk because there's a high number of people that are retiring, leaving the system, and as he documented in the report, it's not just people leaving, it's the institutional knowledge that is leaving and exiting the system. So he has raised it with the Premier, and it is important that this committee discuss it because we need to find a way to manage that particular risk, and you are within your right and within your means to raise this because I'm also very much concerned. This is one department. The other department that I'm very concerned about is the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport. Because if you have a long service award, you will see that a lot of people work for 40 years in that department the same year. And when they exit, then you sit with a knowledge gap. But what is also true of Mr. Rockman, once you start this department, you don't want to exit, and look at our CFO.
Thank you very much, Member Lekotla.
Chair, I just wanted to say on the climate change, I think just one comment. which I think must also be considered, Minister, even with food security approach. That I think one of the things we must maybe take from our first president, Nelson Mandela, is a people-centered approach. Because one of the things that we would want to do, I think one appreciates the response of everything that government is doing, bringing in private sector and everybody to be interested. But if we're not bringing the people in the conversation, we are going to be government that is always trying to, chase wind, because people are going to then, be depending and asking government, we are in a disaster, what should we do? We are confronted with fires, what should we do? Because sometimes it's actually, if you look at informal settlements, it's about how people build their shacks, and if you don't have that conversation. So I just wanted to raise, I think for me, that's one issue that I would want to sponsor, that I think in your approaches, one of the things you have to look at is a people-centered lab of food security, and also of disaster, because I think one of the things we see in some of these countries, or in terms of their resilience, is empowerment of the people themselves, so that the first point of call before you call a disaster official, is yourself in the household. So I just wanted to say, I think it's one issue that maybe when in the standing committee now, perhaps we look at what you have put together as plans. We'll be interested in the extent to which you've got programs that interact with the communities, with the people themselves around being disaster conscious. Thanks.
Minister, you just want to respond to
I
that?
must respond to that. That's a very important point. This is why you will see in the report there were dialogues with the youth on climate change, and some of them will take place this week. This week there will be another dialogue. There was also a previous dialogue with the youth, and I think that one took place in Oudtshoorn. This week is the third dialogue. But honorable member Nkondla, many years ago, I went to Germany when I was the MEC for social development. And we spoke there and asked experts, what is the best way to deal with substance abuse? Because I was an MEC and I was thinking about we must teach the people at high school and that. They told us that is too late, long too late. You must start with the kindergarten, ECDs. My question is, to respond to your question is, sensitize people about climate change and things like that. Should we not at ECD level? Because the image that we have see on television in the townships, when there's a fire or a flood, it's a mother with a child under her arm and the other child grab the mother's rock. And there the mother run. That child has that experience. It is too late to have that experience. The CRES, the ECD must do that type of work to sensitize the children at the early age, because climate change is permanently. So I will be asking you to support us on climate change education at the ECD level much earlier. But also, when last did you see an advert on SABC, on TV, about the dangers of climate change, the impact of climate change, what we can do at home level to teach people? I don't see this on television. I see a lot of macaroni, but I don't see this. So this is, I think, where we need to go permanently. Every farmer, I want in every farm, when I go to a farm, I ask the farmer, who's your climate change manager here? Because when a flood is happening, you can't just write to the minister and say, my orchards are gone. Who is responsible for climate change on farm level? In fact, now at our homes, we need to do the same, because the insurance companies are not coming to the party when your roof is leaking. Who is responsible at your home is now responsible for these things at your home level, because we now see permanent radical change. We are now in October, and look what happened this weekend. So I think you are right to raise it, and I want to thank Dr. Troutman and the team of Environmental Affairs for the work that they are doing, because I listened to some of the conversations of the youth. Fascinating stuff, quite different from what we are discussing here. And they are really at the forefront of thinking about climate change. And I appreciate the work that Dr. Troutman and the others are doing, as well as sustainable resource use management. And this is one of the functions which Daryl Jacobs' unit and the branch of Dr. Troutman are working very nicely together.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're moving to part E, page 199 to 210. Members, questions? While you're looking for questions, I'll throw my one in. Page 202, it's about 1.2, the fruitless and wasteless, and then you and wasteful expenditure, and then you get to the reconciliation notes, and it says 6 cases relating to non-attendance of official events, and then you look at the bottom one, it says 3 cases relate to non-attendance of official events, and 1 case relating to the cancellation of paid and accommodation not used. So if we can just get some explanation on A and B, then we'll be happy as a committee. Members, I've got more questions, but I'm giving you opportunity. Member Lekker.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on page 201 with regards to the disciplinary hearing or criminal steps taken as a result of an irregular expenditure. Now, I see that there was a verbal warning issued to an employee. My question, therefore, would be if the details of the incident that led to a verbal warning for non-compliance can be shared. And whilst I'm looking at this, I want to link it to Part C, which talks about the code of conduct. And I want to ask again there whether there are interactions in relation to these things such as the irregular or non-compliance with the Treasury instruction. Is there something like that in the code of conduct? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Nkondlo.
Page 207, Chair. I just want to understand what were these additional services that led to the expansion of the bid application for NAMPO Expo in Bredasdorp. And then on page 208, on the extension of supply and delivery of perishable and non-perishable products, perhaps you can just explain this one, especially because the extension is almost 50% of the original contract. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Member. And then I'll throw in my second one, page 212, emphasis of matter, material impairment. Number 7, if you can just explain that material impairment pointed out by the AG. Thank you very much, HOD. Minister, over to you.
Chair, thank you. I want to hand over to my CFO and Director Trotsky to respond to the NAMPO expansion of scope.
Thank you, Chairperson. So in terms of the fruitless and wasteful, so you'll see that the reconciling notes is just a breakdown of that 10,000 Rand, which was made up of the 7 cases, of which 6 was then the non-attendance of our events and 1 a cancellation fee for accommodation. And then in B, it's those cases that are still under assessment or determination. And that is then 3 and 1 of the same 10. So it's within that total of 7. I hope that explains it. Then in terms of the verbal warning on the case on page 201, if I can just go back, that specific case related to, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. It related to specifically an official in this instance that did not make use of the lowest airfare in terms of having to travel for official purposes. And of course, in such matters, one considers various factors in terms of determining the appropriate sanction. So in this instance, that was then the verbal warning. And in terms of the code of conduct, we do share the code of conduct with staff twice a year at least. There is always engagement as well. When we get cases of irregular or fruitless and wasteful, we communicate to all our staff and make sure they are aware of the requirements of our standard operating procedures, which is also aligned to our Treasury instructions and regulations and so on. So we make every effort to communicate whenever there's findings, to reiterate and create that awareness after, but also during the year. And we review those SOPs every year as well, and that is also shared and on our intranet. And then the last one was on the expansions. I think Dirk was going to take the number.
Chairperson, yes, thank you very much. I think what is important is that we must realize we can only do business with Nampo Cape, with Bredasdorp Park. There are no other service providers that can provide us with the facilities at that stage. And when we started planning the exhibition and the youth event and the other exposure at Nampo Cape, we had certain ideas in mind. As time progressed, there were some additional ideas that came to the fore, and we, instead of doing a separate bid, we expanded on the existing bid. So that's the long and the short of the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the last question on the catering, in terms of the perishable and non-perishable products for our college students. So this contract is for a period of 2 years, and it has an option to extend by another year. So the department then exercised that option because there were no complaints, and we were very happy with the services rendered. So I was still within the terms of the agreement.
Members follow up on that? Can we move on to part F, because I asked a question already on part F. Let's move to part F. Member Van Wyk, you first, but I've got a question that one will now be answered on page 212. But Member Van Wyk, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this really relates to predetermined objectives, and just for purposes of the department, we did have a discussion with the Auditor General in the session before this. And one of the debate goes around a number of predetermined objectives that get set, and then some of those one just can't achieve. And I suppose the summing up comment that I said to Auditor General, that I think what we need to look at is that when we set predetermined objectives, that they need to be relevant, that they need to be realistic, and that one must be able to achieve them as well. And at the same time, one must also look at stretching yourself as well to try and get to those levels that one puts out there. And then, often one sees predetermined objectives which are saying attend 4 meetings a year. That's not really a predetermined objective at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think there were a number of issues here with veterinary services and laboratory that was closed for that period of time for renovation. And, then the whole question is one actually dealing with service delivery, in terms of the objectives that the PDOs that one is creating. So I suppose that's a thought. It's a theme that we've seen through a number of the departments, that on a number of them, and I've used the words of, you sometimes create a PDO that becomes a lot for your hut, because then you don't get it. So I think it is just that that's a comment that I have there.
Thanks. It is 214. You forgot to mention the page. 213 and 214. Okay, thank you. Member Nkontla?
Thank you, Chair. My first question stems from, I think, just observation of the budgets from, especially on the economic classification of programs. In light of the conversation that we're having early in the morning until now when we started, I think I just want to raise my concern, because if one looks, for example, in page 224, disaster risk reduction under program 2, I mean, has got the fourth budget there in terms of size. And I'm not sure where else is the very issue of disaster that we're talking about lies in terms of function. Because for me, what is important is that when we elevate an issue and we speak about it, also money must show. You can say something is important, but when it comes to the budget of that particular function, it's actually the least, of all. So I'm raising this, and I can be educated if indeed some of the functions are sitting somewhere. I'm just using the specific names now when I look at the disaster risk reduction and food security, another one. We're talking about it, important program, and it's a sub-program, and look at the size of its budget, So for me, such does not make sense when you just start looking at what has prominence in terms of a budget in as far as the different programs are concerned, if we're to use money as a measure or as an indicator, So I think it's one issue, and rural development program also is the least funded program. Perhaps the HOD can intelligently, educate an ordinary member sitting on this side. So I think that's my first question, Chair. Just wanting to understand, the allocation of budget, not because I'm saying they must be equitably distributed, better. But I'm just saying, in light of the conversation we're just having, for me, it just does not make sense.
Thank you very much. HOD, over to you.
Also,
Yes,
perhaps I'm still awake. Despite your assumptions. Chair, those issues that Honourable Member Nkontla raised is very important because it deals with the governance and the funding priorities of the government, but also deal with the issue of conditional grants. Now, on the 16th of July this year, the National Minister, the new GNU National Minister of Agriculture, he tabled his budget speech in the National Parliament. I made a detailed assessment of the budget to see where his thinking is, and his thinking is 100% aligned with what you now mentioned. This is the areas that he has identified that needs greater financial support. Number one, earlier today you spoke about food security. That is what he raised. Disaster management, the one that you raised. He mentioned it specifically, the issue of disaster management and also the issue of rural development. He reckons that needs deeper funding and support and a new focus of the government. I will now watch on Wednesday, the National Minister of Finance will table his medium-term budget policy statement. I will be specifically looking at whether the commitments or the policy shifts which the National Minister of Agriculture has indicated is now reflected in the medium-term budget policy statement for the next 3 years. So absolutely, the issues that you are raised are topical, relevant by the national minister.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think perhaps what we need to do is to map where disaster risk reduction is happening elsewhere in the department, and it's not called disaster risk reduction. I mean, if you look at the rural development, the whole funding that goes to Casidra is rural development. I think we must just map it properly so that the committee will see where we actually are spending the money. But if you look at the work that we do in Program 4, vet services, on its own, it's a disaster mitigation. Because if we don't visit the abattoirs, there will be serious disaster in terms of public food safety. And the work that we do with the Provincial Vet Laboratory, it's really an issue around disaster. But something that is very exciting to me is the issue around food security. You make an observation that it's least funded. But I think the issue that we need to perhaps understand is the global understanding of food security from where we sit as the department. We think that food security challenges we have in the Western Cape and in South Africa is the access issue. It's not the production issue. And if you look at the production of food, it's happening already at 3.1, and that's where all the conditional grant goes into. And that is to ensure there is food in the system. But the challenge we have is that people don't have necessarily the means to access available food. And that is why it becomes very important for us, also in terms of the growth for job strategy, that we see our role in there to enable citizens to find jobs through community projects, through farming in general, and so on and so forth, because by so doing, you then enable them to access the available food that is already available in the system. So that's really it. But if the committee so wishes, we can map it just to indicate under which program what is happening, particularly on the issues you've raised around disaster risk reduction, food security, rural development. We can map it nicely, and I think it's important that we do that for the committee. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. If I then may go to page 212 in terms of the material impairment. So maybe just to explain that this is an impairment that we calculate for our debtors that are in terms of services rendered. So it's not salary related or staff related debt. So it's mostly our student fees, but also other fees like our veterinary services or lab services. But the majority of this amount is related to our student fees. 16.6 million of that amount is actually already at legal services. So we've handed that over. So that's in process. As you know, it just takes extremely long because of their own capacity challenges as well. And then about the balance of that is then with our department that's also currently older than 18 months. So we have a specific policy in terms of how we calculate the impairment, but it is a very high amount. We do know, like I said, we wait very long in terms of any feedback from legal services, and at the end of the day, we end up having to write off quite a significant amount because of the fact that the debt expires and so on. What we've also now started looking into and piloted is to see, could we not rather make use of private debt collectors to try and speed up and actually recover some of the funds. Obviously, that also comes at a cost because they charge you a percentage of the money that they've collected. But that we're still exploring that as a possible solution to bring that number down. I think the others will comment and Dalton.
Yeah. Members' questions, further questions on part F, Member Lekker and then Member Kontla. Member Lekker, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier on, Chair, we wanted to understand the issue around the targets on program 4. I'm on page 214, where it says the total number of veterinary samples tested, the target was 10 and the achievement was 0. You would recall that we wanted to actually know when this happened, was there a contingency plan from the department itself?
It was asked, but we'll give it to the department. Member Kontler.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe to go back and expand on the very question in page 249, you would see on goods and services on laboratory services, it is explained there that it's due to the lab services contracted from private laboratories since there was a temporary closure. I think this is what also the AG, when we're discussing, raised. Now, the question for me is that if indeed also financial-wise, we had to even have a spike in the spending, how come we have indeed, as indicated in page 95, that both of those targets were not achieved? A 25,000 target of the number of tests were not achieved because of the closure of the laboratory services. And the veterinary samples that were supposed to be tested, also the 10 were not achieved, and we're saying because the lab was closed. And yet we paid for private services, in that regard. So it does not make sense from where I'm sitting, if you can explain that. And then, Chair, on page 247, there's an indication of a reimbursement of funds from Westgro amounting to about 4.2 million. Can you maybe tell us more what happened? Why was this project discontinued?
Remember that you two, Member Van Wyk, asked that question and it wasn't answered. So that's the same thing. Can I just have two questions on 222? 222, if you go to the last payments for capital assets, it says building and other fixed structures. It looks like the original budget was increased, but only 16%. That 16% stands out as being used. So why do you increase the budget and then the money is not spent? Only 16%, if you can just elaborate on that. And then 232, at the bottom here, it gives, please elaborate on the projects. It says 2 projects could not be finalized by the year end due to technical difficulties of 4.3 million. If you can just, that is on page 232. Thank you. HOD, over to you.
Chair, thanks. Ilse will respond to the issue around the indicators under the program vet services and what has happened while the lab was closed. And the CFO will respond to the questions, Chair, you've raised, including the Westgro issue. Thanks.
Thank you, HOD, and Chair and members. Thank you so much. Yes, let me explain. The laboratory was supposed to be upgraded, and we were given a specific time for the upgrade and the maintenance to be done. And based on that, the amount or the number that we indicated, the planned target, was reduced accordingly to the number of months left in the financial year. However, like any building, you will know that as the process was progressing, we discovered that the deadline will not be met. And for that particular reason, the lab was finished several months later. And that's the reason why we could not come back to the lab and do all the samples. So that's the one part of why we did not achieve those. So the planning was perfect according to the number of months left, and then taking into account that we would have moved into the lab at a set date. That did not happen, and we had to adapt to that. In terms of the budget spent, yes, you're 100% correct, but keep in mind that the budget is not linked to these 2 targets. The budget is linked to the sub-program. So whilst we were not operational in the lab, we still had expenses to pay. We had to buy new furniture for the lab. We had to do the IT system. We had to do SANA's accreditation. And we also had to do the LIMS, the Laboratory Information Management System licensing to be paid. So the cost that you see in the budget was incurred on matters that had to continue whilst the lab was closed indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in terms of page 247, so we annually transfer funds to Wescro to manage the agri desk on behalf or for the department. But unfortunately, it's been found in the previous years that not all those funds were spent, and there was then a refund of that unspent money of the previous years related to that project that was refunded to the department. In terms of the page 222, if I can just go back. The underspend there, or the 16% actual spend. So in terms of this allocation, this is actually conditional grant funding for infrastructure that is allocated to the college. And they have a project going for the upgrade of the agronomy section. This has been a challenge in terms of, again, the delays. We have been working with DOI, but there was also delays in terms of finalizing the business plan for the full project, because it is a longer term project. That business plan only came very late in the financial year. It was, I think, February, March. So unfortunately, we couldn't spend that conditional grant funds. We have asked for that to be rolled over, which we did successfully obtain to roll into the new year. And we are working with DOI to transfer that money to them, because they'll be assisting us with that. So hence, unfortunately, that was why there was such low percentage. And on page 232, similar, that is linked to that same project. So the other project, which we also had some challenges with, is also infrastructure related. It's our vineyard project, the rehabilitation of the vineyard. That's a 2 million rand that we also could not spend timeously. We did go out on tender. There was only one bidder who was unfortunately non-compliant. So we again could not award. Hence, that funds could also not be spent.
Thank you very much, members. Over to you, Member Nkontla first, and then Member Lecker.
Can I follow up on the question of the construction for the lab? What were these reasons? What caused the delay? And were these delays not anticipated? And as you are stating that you have put the lesser targets anticipating the remaining months. So in light of the fact that now you had these delays that you did not anticipate, so what happened then to the tests that are there that needs to be done? And also, I'm assuming that the other one is a compliance issue with, I think, SANA's standards. So what then happens to those?
Lecker, do you have a follow-up question?
No, it's a new question.
Let's just deal with that one, then we'll do the new ones.
Chair, thank you. Remember, the building is 51 years old. And when they started renovating, they discovered that there was some major problems with the flooring and parts that they had to remove before they could do the new floors and some of the other renovations. So it was not even foreseen by the Department of Infrastructure. It was just discovered as they were upgrading the lab, and that is the reason why it happened. It was not negligence on their side, neither on our side, but it was only discovered whilst they were working on the building. And as I said, it was an old building. The indicator says number of. That means we could not do those testing ourselves, and that's why you have a 0. However, if it had to be done, it was done through private laboratories that we procured through a proper procurement process. So we had to do what we had to do, but we could not do the assessments and the analysis ourselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Thank you for that answer. Let's move to new questions. Member Lecker.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on page 235, under the voted funds to be surrendered to the revenue fund. And interested in knowing or having explanation as to why these funds were surrendered instead of being carried over as a rollover, and what were the factors that were contributing to such a decision. The second one, Chair, is on page 251, under travel and subsistence. Can the department provide the details regarding local and foreign travel, including how many officials traveled and the purposes of the trips? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask also a question on 263. They also have note 24.3 impairment accrued departmental revenue. If we can just answer that one also. HOD, over to you.
Chair, thanks. I will ask the CFO to respond. And with respect to the travel details, I'm sure that we can make available.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the departmental revenue to be, voted funds to be surrendered. So this is then now underspend, which we did. Sorry, I'm talking nonsense. But yeah, so the 14.1 million, am I right? Remember, that's what we were speaking about. I just want to go to note 14, if you allow me. Because there the explanations are also there. Okay, so this is, yeah, that's all the underspend we had. So we didn't spend the 1.47%, which is the 14 million. So just in terms of the process with the Treasury, we have to pay that money back at the end of the year. We generally pay it back in April. We do then follow a process that they allow us to apply to ask them for the rollovers, which we have done. So the full amount we have asked, and of that, the 4.3 is then the cost that we've asked for, and the balance of 12.6 is what we've asked to spend in for operational pressures. So we have done that. Okay, and then in terms of the details, as HOD mentioned, we definitely can provide that. In terms of that impairment amount, that is the same amount as what the AG has highlighted, just rounded, yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Questions, members? Is there no further questions? All right, I'm going to, Member Van Wyk.
The new question that I have for you, Chair, is whether our refreshments are going to have to be impaired if we get there late.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give the Minister and HOD opportunity to concluding remarks. Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank you also for chairing the SCOPA with the necessary level of seriousness, because this tells us that you take accountability and responsibility very serious. I'd also like to thank you for your approach, because it is not always when we have the right answers immediately here, and you have made provision that you will take it part of the SCOPA resolutions. I'd also like to thank members of the SCOPA for the level of details and the depth of their questions. Also to my officials, led by the HOD, Dr. Sebo Petse, also led by the CFO, the two DDGs, and the various program managers. I think they did an excellent job. I want to thank them, because they work in a very highly regulatory and compliance environment. And our clean audit, unqualified without any material issues. I want to congratulate the department. Every year, I look at SCOPA, if there are any resolutions, if applicable, because it is my job, if there are any resolutions of SCOPA, to take it up with the accounting officer. I'm happy to report that there were no SCOPA resolutions in the year under review. I would also like to thank the External Audit Committee, who is present in the House, as well as the Auditor General and Ms. Mariki. I think this will be my last time that I will see her before SCOPA in the capacity of the Department of Agriculture. I have met her in 1984 for the first time when she worked for the Auditor General Office. I want to thank her for my long-term friendship and the relationship, professional working relationship, obviously. And I want to thank her for her. She's also a no-nonsense type of person. Keep us on our feet, and we wish her a happy, prosperous retirement, and with the bag full of pension, which we will audit before it is actually paid out. Thank you, Chair.
Jody?
Thank you very much. I also want to extend our deep appreciation to you and to the members of the committee for all you do for the people of the Western Cape, and more importantly, for guiding us so that when we come here, we have a different approach to the whole landscape of governance. And thank you very much.
I'm going to ask Member Pat Lecker to do the thank you to the department and the minister. It was Member Johnson on Friday, so it's your turn. The lucky draw is yours. Member Petronella Lecker to do the thank yous.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by thanking the hard work done by the officials in the department. I know it's not easy, and especially now that we are hit by the climate change, everyone has to be on their toes in ensuring that everything gets to be done. I just want to say that if the mission or the vision of the department has to deal with poverty alleviation, I want to see it happening in real terms, because there are real lived experiences of people who do not have access to food. And such would be great pleasure if partners to the department can be called in and assist, particularly in areas where food is needed the most. Unemployment is also hitting very hard at our people, who are expecting a lot from you. I'm not saying you must make miracles, but we are of the opinion that people out there are hungry. Having said that, the minister in charge of the department, he has been someone who is very playful, especially watching him in the sittings, but he has provided good and enough guidance to the department itself. And I wish that can be extended beyond the department into other departments. It's been in social development, it's been everywhere. By now, we should be sharing real lived experiences with his colleagues. Having said that, thank you to you all. Your good work does not go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The minister and the department will be excused. The committee will stay behind for resolutions. Thank you very much. But like usual, you can add where necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Through you, honourable members, Chair. Just get to my notes here. Member Konlo reiterated on slide 8 of the AG's presentation about the impact on service delivery of targets not achieved in terms of program 4, the 20% not achievement, in terms of page 95 of the annual report, and that the committee should discuss this with the department and with the Auditor General, etc., to see how the non achievement of some or of the target impacts on service delivery, Chair. So I've noted that, Chair. Chair, then you spoke about the contract expansion, but they've explained it as well, but they said that they can give us a report as well.
No, they didn't explain it.
Oh, on page
Yeah, they
52.
no, they didn't explain it. They said they'll give us a report on
Yeah, so I've got that as a report, Chair. And the same, they said that they can give us a report on page 46, the irregular expenditure condoned, as well as the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, Chairperson. And then as well as the page 49, Chair, you've spoken to Considera, sorry, I'm on Considera now, Chair.
Okay.
About the 30 days. Where there's nothing. They said that they can give us a report on that, but for future reference, they will put it in their footnotes properly, Chairperson. Then we're going to the department, Chair. The member Lacker wanted to know on page 201 about the disciplinary on the regarding the irregular expenditure. And they said that they can give us a report on that, Chair. And then member Nkondlo and member Van Wyk spoke about the disaster risk reduction, the food security, the social facilitations, and the rural developments. The department said that they can map it out for us and give us a document on that, Chairperson. So that is a request for information. And then as well, Chairperson, the TNS, the travel and subsistence, they say that they can provide us a report on the domestic and international travel, including the number of officials who attended those travels, Chairperson, for the year under review.
Members, is that it? Is there any additions to that? Member Lecker?
Sorry, man, I was not concentrating. I want to check the list that I requested, which the CEO said they are going to forward it.
Yes, it's the travel and subsistence for the international and domestic travel.
Yeah, that's done. Yeah. Thank you, members. There's some refreshments at the back. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Just go to the technical stand.
Yeah, Chair, I'm also.